is a nice one.
The lighting looks nice.
Alrighty, guys.
Hey.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good. What's
Pretty
going
good.
on?
How's everything? How's the current quarantine vibes?
Yeah.
Well, we're going into, what is it? Hold on. It's something like 17 weeks.
Oh my God.
And I left New York. We shut down. The very next day I was on a plane on March 13th, and I've been here since. Thank God, because I would have gone crazy with Sebastian in that apartment. But, you know, in the first month here, I gained 10 pounds. Because of Gina's cooking, and she was cooking paellas and pastas, things I don't eat all the time. And then I changed my wicked ways and said, I gotta do something. So I'm back, you know, I've been swimming every day and doing the stationary bike and eating well, and so I'm back to normal.
That's great.
And I'm moving to Wednesday to New York. So.
Oh yeah, you're starting back up, right?
Yeah, well, supposedly we were going to start prep on August 3rd, but now they're saying that our shoot will start August 24th. So if you backtrack it about 10 days, it'll be about a week later. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
do you want to tell the audience what you're working on, or is it secret right now?
Or like a bit of like an introduction?
I will be continuing my duties as the executive producer, director of Law and Order Special Victims Unit, of which I've directed SVU for about 14 years on and off as a director, as a guest director. And then last year I signed on as the executive producer director. And so I was there all year. And so I'm doing that again this year.
Awesome.
Like, what's like the status of like production now because of COVID? Like, what's like the set gonna look like now?
Well, it's an interesting question that's still evolving in terms of the answer, but the DGA, IA, and SAG put together a protocol that they presented to studios, and that's a guide. And then they were presented to Governor Cuomo and Newsom of New York and California, and it's going to just take longer. Let's say our usual episode takes 8 days to shoot. It'll probably take 10 days to shoot now, because every day people come in, they'll get, if there's a rapid test available, they'll get tested. If not, they'll get the temperature checked. They'll be given a mask, booties, and gloves. Wow. There won't be no groups more than 5 people. They call them pods, and you remain with your pod. So you can be a camera pod of people, or you can be a sound pod.
Whoa.
There's a maximum amount of people on this that can be in the sound stage at any particular time. I'm not sure the exact number. It's like 40 to 70. We are creating these portals through walls and windows where if there's a scene in a room, the camera people don't have to be in the room with the actors. What we do is we're going to put the camera on an arm, like a crane, and stick it through a portal or door or window, so that the camera is in the room with the actors, but no one else is. And we control the camera from another room. So one of the first things I'm going to do when I get back is we're going to go over our existing sets and say, okay, which portals exist, because we have portals already, and which ones will we have to add? And then there's, you know, what is the reality that we're portraying? And we're going to be portraying a COVID reality. So in the squad room, people will be wearing masks. There'll be disinfecting agents. The break room, for example, will be taped off. And this is based on real things. It turns out that a lot of cops were getting COVID in the break room. So they started taping those off. So we're going to reflect what the real deal is with COVID. There's a lot of things about that change about that. Even the things about, okay, how do we go to lunch? You know, are people going to prepare the lunches for us? Or is it going to be like an airplane where there's already packaged food that you come and pick up? And then if we are going to break for lunch, we'll be staggered so that people sit separate from each other. Then the other thing we're talking about are French hours. I don't know if you're familiar with French hours, but basically in the U.S., basically after 6 hours, you're supposed to have lunch. a half-hour lunch. And it's measured from the last person on the line. So a half hour after the last person on line has gone through, and then you go back to work. In what they call French hours, you don't stop for lunch, you keep shooting. But there's food always available. And so so that instead of 13-hour day, you'll do a 10-hour day because you haven't lost that hour and 15 minutes of people going to lunch and coming back and all that other stuff. And what we want to do is to limit the amount of exposure that people have either going out to get food or gathering to have lunch. So if you set up craft service tables where there are monitors and like every so often a group can go get some food, but we still shoot, it'll minimize the amount of time we're going to be in enclosed spaces. So that's something we different shoots are doing. I'm not sure if we're going to do it. And then also, prep is going to be done all in Zoom. So usually you have a concept meeting and a tone meeting and all these department head meetings where you're all together. Well, now almost all the prep's going to be on the Zoom call, and they'll show us pictures of locations. And then maybe at the end for the tech scout, we'll have a small group go to these locations, and that's that, And there'll be people who are assigned as shooting people and people who are assigned as separately. So there's going to be a lot of changes. These things take time, and we'll see. I mean, and also I'm hiring less directors.
Yeah.
Because usually we had 24 episodes scheduled. Last year, I had about 15 directors. Some of them get 2 or 3 episodes. This year, we're just doing a rotation of 4 directors. And me and 3 others, and exclusive to SVU, so they don't go to other shows and get COVID and bring it back to us.
Oh, interesting.
Another thing we're doing. So it's a intense, complicated, complex, but necessary thing, and I think we're going to do it. I think we're.
Well, the thing that fascinates me is, or one thing that I just can't wrap my head around is makeup. Like, how are people going to touch the actors or interact with them?
Well, what they call they would be one makeup person who will do the actors. That person will probably anyone who comes in contact with the actors will get tested every other day.
Okay.
There will be no last looks. Last looks, we're about to shoot, and the makeup people come and touch you up. There won't be any of that. The actor will have to do that themselves. And that's one way. The boom operator is going to have to disinfect the mic after every setup.
Wow.
And maybe not even a mic. Maybe one person will wire them the same way one person will do the makeup. So it's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had a question just before we got into the makeup situation that I wanted to ask you, because I know they when it all started, they shut you guys down pretty hard. So how was that for you as the executive producer to cope with everything being all of a sudden shut down, and what were the steps into?
Well, actually, the showrunners of SVU, my partners, and we had 3 executive producers in New York, me and 2 other people, and we actually had it in mind a week before we shut down, almost 2 weeks, and we told them, I think we're going to have to shut down. And when the NBA shut down, we said we have to shut down. And actually, it took a little bit. And then finally, we were shooting a new episode, and someone was sick in that first day of shooting on location in the Bronx. And they said, we got to shut it down. It was one of the actors. And they shut it down. I said, okay, so what's the deal? We're going to come back tomorrow. We're going to play it by ear. We'll come back tomorrow. It's no biggie. The doctor didn't think it was COVID or anything. And then the very next day, it was decided, you know what? We're just going to shut down altogether. And that was that. We were ready to go. To the extent that we were going to shut down, we didn't know. Yeah. And I just saw a tweet by the showrunner saying, the shutdown and this whole pandemic has caused so much isolation and stress and financial problems to a lot of our cast and crew, and we don't take it lightly. It's a very big thing, and we're looking forward to coming back, but we want to come back safely.
Yeah, it's just so much pressure, especially on the heads of the show, you know? I mean, trying to weigh coming back and keeping everyone safe, but also, you know, making a living for all these people who are working on the set with you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of these crew people live week to week, you know, and we appreciate that, and we know that, and we want to get them back to work as soon as possible. But you know, we lost a crew member early in COVID. He was one of the first to die, and he was in our wardrobe department. And in fact, like 2 days before we shut down, 2 or 3 days, he was coughing a lot, and he asked to be sent home, and he ultimately died. And several other people got it, and they did okay. So we don't, you know, the New York is looking good, but like we're seeing all over the country, that can change quickly. So,
Yeah.
you know, and then New York is a place where everyone takes public transportation to go to work. So you know, people may not want to do that. I mean, you know, you can't find a bike in New York now. They're all sold out because people, to avoid public transportation, are biking everywhere. And I'm taking my bike and my car. So
Smart.
to try to limit that. Yeah.
Wow.
Do you think that it'll just change the entire game of just like how things are being made, like indefinitely? Like, do you think that it'll ever go back to normal eventually? I mean, just in terms of like, because of like streaming and because of things like specifically, I guess I'm talking about like the theater industry now. Like, do you like, and the way that we consume content, like, do you think that COVID will just shatter like what is expected of like production? You know what I mean?
I think ultimately we're going to evolve and find a more efficient way of and safer way to make product. It's hard to say what that would entail, but we're finding, for example, and they're finding that a lot of folks in every industry are starting to opt towards at home working at home. And not only does it save money in every way, but it's also safer. I think, you know, to make a television show or a movie, you know, people have to gather, and that's always going to be the case. The question is to what extent, and can a lot of these meetings we have, I mean, in a prep and in an episodic show, there's meetings every day. And, you know, I always say we get meeting to death, especially when I'm a guest director. I'm like, okay, give me that one day where I can go prepare on my own and do my homework without going to 10 meetings. Well, I think now a lot of these meetings are going to be consolidated, and a lot of this is going to be done on Zoom, even when things get better, because there is effort to get everyone together, you know. And so I think that may be a thing. I mean, in terms of exhibition, nothing will ever replace a mass exhibition where people gather together and share a communal experience. You can talk about streaming and Netflix and TV and how, wow, a lot of great content's coming out of there, but nothing will replace being in a theater, you know, with hundreds of people and watching a blockbuster movie or an intimate movie where everyone's moved and you share a common experience. And that will always be the case. Now, to what extent that's going to be addressed, initially probably they'll have movies showing at a half capacity of the theater. So people are sitting separately. And they'll probably have to install super serious HEPA filters that circulate the air and, you know, block stuff until we get back to some sort of normalcy. And that would be contingent on a vaccine or viable therapeutics. In terms of legit theater, like Broadway, those are small theaters. They're, you know, turn of the century buildings. And again, you want to go experience, even live theater it's about living that one moment. There's a sense of urgency because that performance is the only performance and it will be never anything like it. It'll be each time is different, and you're experiencing that one moment with the audience. Well, being a smaller venue, the idea of every other seat occupied is still too tight. And so, and then when you get into smaller than that, the theaters will not be financially capable of coping. So that's going to be a tougher hit, and we'll see what happens there. But like every industry is being affected, we're taking our cues also from places that have done it. So before the DGAI and SAG put out a protocol, New Zealand put out one, and so did Spain. And I'm sure the leaders who came up with ours looked at those. And I know that in Vancouver, there was a show, A Million Little Things, that did not stop shooting during the lockdown. They had created a COVID protocol shooting, and they shot, I think, a month and a half into the lockdown, and no one got sick.
Wow.
And it was basically what I was saying. People would get checked. There was safe distancing. The sets were small. There's no video village. There won't be any video village. People will be separated. You can go to in your house or your office and see it on your iPhone, the live feed from the camera. So it's been done. I know in Mexico City, there was a show that actually did not shut down. They rented a hotel and put everybody in the cast and crew in the hotel that was across the street from the studio, and they would all be together, and then they would cross the street to the studio and shoot. So they were in their own mini quarantine, and that has worked out. So, and then Avatar 2 is shooting, but again, that's a tiny special effects situation where they're one actor in front of green screen and motion sensors, and you got 10 people or 20 people in the studio with computers and shit.
Yeah.
They're all
not
separated.
The same.
And so and they also have tons of money to shoot as long as as possible to make it happen. Not every show is going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's tough.
We do want to kind of go back in time a little bit and just kind of talk to about your career, because we're very curious as to just because we are filmmakers and we wanted to see the journey of how you actually were able to get an agent and in your first job, and just seeing. I'm just very curious as to see how that happened, or what was your journey.
Yeah, I talk a lot about that. I have, I mentor a bunch, and I'm part of a lot of committees at the Directors Guild where we talk and try to give guidance. Everyone's journey is different. There's no set established rule or situation that will produce an outcome of success.
For sure.
I tend to tell people, once you use the idea of modeling. Modeling is where you model yourself and your journey after someone that you look up to, or whose career you liked, or that you want to be like. Or so I started modeling myself, and I picked 5 directors, and I looked into how they made it. And all of them was different. There were some commonalities, but they all have different journeys, but it's great to look at their journeys, and it will give you some insight into what possibilities there are. My particular journey, I was in Columbia University, and after 2 years, I really wanted to make the jump to film. And at the time, Columbia did not have an undergrad film program. And I was an undergrad, and I was majoring in English and comparative literature because that gave me access to the history of drama. And I knew that's what I wanted to go into, even though I actually went in to be a pre-med and to study medicine. But I made the jump. I applied to USC Film School, and I got in. And so as a junior, I transferred to USC. And I did a couple of years there, and then ran out of money. Went back to New York to drive a cab. Where came back to LA, finished up at USC, and then a couple of years later, I applied to the American Film Institute for directing, and I got in also. And that's a tough program. That's a tougher program because they only invite, I think, 23 directors a year.
Wow.
And after I left there, I wrote a short script for a contest that Universal Television had. It was called the Hispanic Project, and it doesn't exist anymore. It was a partnership with the National Hispanic Media Coalition, and their goal was to put more representation behind the camera. And the contest had started about 4 years earlier, and the first year I submitted a script for a friend of mine to direct, and it won, and he got to direct. So after I finished AFI, I had nothing going. I said, well, let me apply again, and I'll change my name. And I applied again, and it won again. And so I had to confess. I said it was me, and I won before, and they said, it's fine, you're going to direct, and we kind of knew it. And so I did this short film. They funded it. It's called Chavez Ravine, a 30-minute film about the neighborhood that Dodger Stadium is built on, and takes place in the 50s when the Dodgers got that land, and there was a shanty town there of poor people that had been there multi-generations, mostly Mexican Americans. And there were they paid people off to leave and move, but 7 families that said they wanted to stay and fight, that was their land. And ultimately, and my story is about a father who wanted to stay and fight, and his son who really didn't care. His buddies moved to the projects, and he just wanted to be with them. And the wife, who was stuck in the middle, they ultimately lose their house gets bulldozed at the end. But the father, son, and wife come to an understanding of what's important to them as a family. So it was a thing I wrote based on what really happened, and but it was fiction. And I did it, and they screened it at Universal. I invited some people, and there were 3 screenings, I think. And the last screening, some people I invited worked for a production company, and they had a feature film that they had ready to go, that the director, Alex Cox, who was a well-known director, dropped out. And they just offered, they said, do you want to do it? And which will never happen.
That's incredible.
I tell people, don't think that a short film is going to get you a feature offer.
Yeah.
I was in the right place at the right time. Although my little movie was a domestic family drama, I called it like American Playhouse. This movie that I was being offered, it was a violent revenge thriller. And I thought, wow, what the, why? And they said, no, Blue Tiger.
Oh,
okay. And they
said, is
this
before you had an agent?
Huh?
Was this before you even had an agent?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they offered me the thing, and they said, because we saw what you could do in 5 days. I shot the movie in 5 days, and the production value was really good. They said, you'll get 18 days for this. There's a lot of action and violence. And I said, okay. It was called Blue Tiger. And Virginia Madsen plays the mother of a kid, just happened to be Viggo Mortensen's kid in real life. And the kid's 6 years old. She goes into a pharmacy, and all of a sudden there's a shootout between rival gangs. And one of the guy and the kid gets killed in the crossfire. And all she remembers is the guy who shot him, his shirt, he had a mask, and his shirt ripped open when he jumped through a window, and she saw a blue tiger tattoo. And so she loses it, and it's hospitalized in a mental institution. And all she can remember is the blue tiger tattoo. And she says, fuck this. She goes and she finds a tattoo guru, and that's Harry Dean Stanton. And he says, "Oh, I know what this is." He goes, "This is Yakuza. Don't get involved." But if you, and she goes, "I have to get involved." She goes, "Well, there's a myth that the blue tiger is looking for the red tiger and that they will meet." And so she figures, okay, she's going to go with the myth. And she gets Harry Dean Stanton to put a full body red tiger tattoo on her.
Wow. And
then she gets a job at a Japanese club because he said it's Japanese. And ultimately she meets the guy and falls in love with him. So
that's awesome.
But she's got to kill him. So
holy shit.
That Blue Tiger, and that you should see it. It became, it got great reviews, but it didn't go. It was shown in the movie theaters in Europe and around the world. But here, HBO bought it, and they had this series at the time called Action Thursdays or something, and so they played it there. So that movie got me my second movie, which was a Mario Van Peebles movie called Solo, where Mario Van Peebles is a robot developed by Adrian Brody, who's a young scientist for the military, and they want to send Solo to this Latin American country and to destroy. There was a little battle going on, and Adrian Brody is telling his generals that Solo's developed emotions because I developed him, and they say he can't, and there's this big thing where Solo escapes his masters and goes into the jungle and helps this village out.
Wow.
So it was kind of schlocky, but it was fun. And and after that I started getting to television. I did 3 TV movies and then started doing episodic, and I've directed over 120 1-hour episodes of drama.
Wow.
And from after directing a whole bunch, I've been asked to be executive producer, director of a bunch of shows like Grimm and Mayans MC, FBI, and SVU, Criminal Intent, and I was the main director on Lights Out for effects. So that's how it's grown, and I'm in a place now where I love what I do in television, and I get to overlook a whole show. And then after a couple of years of doing that, I jump back to being a guest director and jump on a bunch of different shows. And then at the same time I could develop other stuff. I just wrote a short film that I want to do, and I'll do that on one weekend in New York.
Awesome. That's amazing.
That's because we have to create. It doesn't just and I'm sent movies here and there, but to really fully commit on a movie is talking about a several-year commitment. And at this time in my life, I kind of like doing what I'm doing. That'll come. But that's it in a gist. It's not an easy journey. I lucked out for the beginning to get that opportunity, but you got to prove yourself each time out.
For sure.
And I remember, I was going up, and I did the TV movies and some episodic, and then I couldn't get work for 2 years. It just happened. And then it went up. And this time, though, it kept going. And now I'm at a point where I don't have to worry as much. But still, as filmmakers, it's great that you create your own content, be true to yourself. And also know that as a filmmaker, you can do a movie, and then one day someone wants you to direct a TV episode, and you can jump and do other TV episodes and TV shows. Telling a story is not limited to one particular genre or one particular distribution method. So, a story is a legitimate story, can be told on an iPhone, on television, in movies. A story's a story, and I would say embrace that, and also do what you love, do what you're attracted to in terms of the sensibilities of your life, and those will tend to be better. And then ultimately you can deviate and just play with with what you want to do, you know.
And that transition from movies to TV, was it just that simple for you? Was someone like, hey, do you want to do this TV show? And you're like, hell yeah.
Well, the opportunity, they came to me, and it was actually Rob Cohen and Rafaela De Laurentiis. So Rob Cohen did a movie about Bruce Lee. I forgot what it's called, but this was a while ago. And they had a new show called Vanishing Sun, which sort of a modern day take on the whole kung fu legend, you know.
Yeah.
And it was a Universal show, and so I guess the Universal kind of knew me, and they said, "Listen, we'd like you to direct this thing," and it was in San Diego, and it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had at that point. It was like, oh, wow, if this is TV, I want no part of it, because now, I know I mentioned the show. We should have mentioned all this stuff. It wasn't so much the people. I mean, because there was a lovely producer who I really liked a lot, who ran he had a whole bunch of shows in San Diego, and he ran a nice tight ship. I think what I was adverse to was that I'm coming onto someone else's playground, and the limitations of time, budget, and answering to a set format that's been established was new to me. And I guess I felt creatively restricted or constricted. And then after that, I did another show called New York Undercover. And that kind of liberated me to some extent, because one, I went back to my hometown. And the other thing, it was handheld, 16 millimeter, and on the streets. And it was a demographic that I liked very much. It was a Black and Latino show. And what little that I think about was it was Dick Wolf. It was a Dick Wolf show.
No way.
That's crazy.
Wow. And I don't know if that started the relationship, but I definitely was there. But there was something, I had felt so much freedom there with the actors and the writers that I felt like I was a co-creator to some extent. Yeah, and you don't get that with every show. And then I did 5 episodes, I think, of that, and then I started doing different shows, and then it just grew. So.
You want more of this?
I don't think he can tell if he likes it or not.
Fantastic. We wanted to ask like what was the process like after you made your first short and then moved on to the feature? When did you get like an agent? What was that process like of getting it? Just because like I know a lot of young filmmakers are genuinely curious after college and like after all this. Like what is the process of even getting an agent?
Well, to me, there's a lot of importance when we're younger that we put on agents. You got to understand that an agent wants something that he can sell. So if you're coming and looking for an agent with something that he really can't sell or doesn't know how to sell, that's problematic. So what you got to do is formulate a way that your package is going to be attractive to a prospective agent. So, for example, let's say all you got for you to show is some short films. Well, then you make sure you get them into contests and win a bunch of them. And then, okay, now you got an award-winning short film. Okay, now here's another thing. You got an award-winning short film, and you also have a feature you wrote. So now you've made the package more interesting, right? And so think of things that you can do, because agents, you know, there's some agencies that will help build a career, and there are the other agencies that they want you already after having built a career, and they'll take you to a bigger place, right? So the other thing is, like, if you book, let's say you somehow book a TV show or you got a movie, then you have something that an agent can say, okay, I'm going to bet on this guy, because what if that movie's awesome? I got him before anyone else does. Or I read a script he did, or he won this contest. They may come to you because they figure, oh, I want to get this guy before other people get, because I see a lot of promise, right? So they'll come to you, right? In terms of you looking for an agent, you've already put yourself in the weak side because you're looking for them, right? So and so you got to look at, okay, which agents will even talk to you, because there's this solicited and unsolicited. And by solicited, it's like, okay, you got a friend of that agent, and that friend talks you up, and the agent says, okay, call me. Well, then that's fine. Or, but somehow you got a connection with an agent it's open to seeing your stuff. My feeling is you do your stuff and you put it out there in such a way that they will come to you. So there's a lot of, like, for example, agents will come to people who have submitted a script into, like, the Nichols screenwriting program, and if they win or get a finalist, you'll get agents calling you because they want the next script. You know, you have to look at what you can do to give them something to sell. And then there's a thing called hip pocketing, where the agent doesn't necessarily sign you, but he hip pockets you to see, okay, let me see how this works. And what happens is, let's say you manage there's all these programs where because of a short film, you got into the NBC Emergent Filmmaker program. Oh, you got into that? Well, now you go through that program, and you're going to meet some executive, you're going to meet whatever, you'll talk to executives and say, hey, can you hook me up or whatever, or they'll come to you because they know you're in that program. So I always say, there's all these programs, especially for people of color and women right now. So I'm a judge, for example, on the NBC Female Forward program, the NBC Emergent Filmmakers program, and I'm a judge in the DDI for the Directors Guild, which is a little more, that's for mentorship, really. And this, I tell you, there's this great things. Now, in terms of what happened with me was, in the middle of prepping my first movie, an agent contacted me and said, hey, my name is so-and-so. This executive at NBC, at Universal, who you worked with on your short film, said you're someone I should meet. So that's how the executive I worked for my short film. So what happened was, when I got that short film that I won at Universal, they had attached the junior executive to the movie. And he gave a word to this agent, and the agent met me, and then actually he ended up representing me. And the strange thing, I mean, that movie, I think I did 25 years ago, or more, that short film. And that junior executive is Dick Wolf's right-hand man now. He runs the
crazy.
Dick Wolf thing. So we've known each other for that amount of time. And he's the one who introduced me with this agent. So then this agent, after I finished my movie, tried to get my second movie. And then I actually ended up leaving him some years later when it slowed down for me. I thought I needed a change to see maybe I can, spur things up. And I did. And then I ended up going back to him, and he's my manager now. He's been my manager for the last 19 years. And this was the guy who was my first agent, who met me as I was prepping my movie. And then I have my agent who I've been with for those same 19 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then as a director, I was just kind of wondering what the difference between having an agent and a manager would be.
Well, I went a long time without a manager. I had just had an agent. So with an agent, you pay 10% of whatever you make, of whatever they get you, right? It's the same with a manager. You're going to have to pay 10%. Some managers are 15%. So a lot of people say, well, why am I going to pay 20%? I'll just get an agent and get 10%. Well, really, my life changed once I had the manager too. Because what happens is the Hollywood and television and movies is about, a lot of it's about networking and who you know and who your representatives know. So if you have an agent who has this group of connections, and now you have a manager who's actually got a different group of connections, you've just opened yourself up to more connections. And the other thing I find is that a good agent-manager relationship, really, they actually work with each other, but they also want to be the person who gets you the gig. So they also compete with each other. But I have these guys. I have one of the top agents in Hollywood for television directors. Right? I mean, it's like the best TV directors this guy has, and so that's a blessing. And then my manager has worked with him and met with and had since for 20 years now. So I did, and here's the other thing: agents really work on a sort of the moment. Oh, this thing should I? This thing is coming up, or look, if you do this, then in 6 months you can do this. A manager actually looks at you as the whole career and your life and what's best for you, what you should say no to, what you should try to do. Should you do that show that's in a country that's going to take you away from your family for 6 months, or you do this show that maybe doesn't have, the juice of the other one, but you'll be with your family. Or like there'll be shows that they'll say, listen, this pays half your usual rate, but you want to do this show because it's a sexy show that everyone's talking about, and it'll be good for let's say for your resume, but yeah, that you're doing something of that nature. So yeah, my manager or people tell me, you would think that they try to get more money and have you do the thing that pays the most. In reality, they're looking out for the longer term. So a lot of these great shows that are on cable pay half of what the network shows pay. But everyone wants to try to do those shows on cable that have the critical acclaim and all that sort of thing. So what I try to do is I balance it. So I do network and I'll do a bunch of the cable and streaming shows. Not every director has had that opportunity, because sometimes directors get pigeonholed down. Oh, that's a broadcast network guy. Oh, that guy, just does HBO stuff or whatever. I've tried along my career to bounce so that I'm relevant in as many worlds as possible.
Yeah, that's really smart.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because you did the Wu-Tang Clan show, right?
Yeah, I did Wu-Tang: An American Saga, and that was for Hulu. And I also did The Path for Hulu.
What's it
yeah,
like
and
working
then
for a streaming service like that? Like, do you have like a like is there like an like a Hulu like person on set that you kind of have to like speak with, or no? It's pretty separate.
Well, no, I mean, the Hulu people were pretty cool. There was I know Wu-Tang, which was an Imagine television production. There was an Imagine person there. And in The Path, I don't recall who, but I knew people from Hulu, and they were very cool. In Better Call Saul, that's AMC, and again, that's a different whole world. I also did Preacher for AMC. So what happens is, if you prove yourself successful in one thing in one place, you want to do another one at that place, and then you've got some sort of what they call repeat business. One of the things I look for when I hire directors is that director have repeat business in the places they went, or where they would direct one show and then they don't get asked back, or the network doesn't want them. So I try to. That's something also in terms of gauging your career. How do you manage that so that when someone looks at what you've done, they say, "Wow, this guy, not only does he do these shows, but he gets to do multiple episodes. That means they like him, and he's done multiple episodes for the same streaming service or the same network, So that means the executives like him, So it's something that you got to think about when you do, especially television."
Wow. Yeah. And then I think that's a good transition into the next question. What is your process for choosing directors? Is there like an audition, or do you just look over a resume?
Well, it depends on the show, because there a lot of people have a say in this. So the studio will have a say, the showrunner, writers will have a say, and I will have a say. I'll make a list of people that I think would be good for the show, because every show's different, and the culture. If you're establishing a culture for the show, or there's a particular culture to that show, this person would be great for it, and this person, I don't think they're going to blossom in this show. And so you kind of narrow it down. But I look at what they've done. I look at if they've done shows like mine, or I look at other shows that they've done that require certain tools, like working with actors or action, or every show has different challenges. And I'll look at whether they have repeat business in some of these shows, or is it all one-offs. And then I'll call some of the producers they've worked with to get a sense of how they work on set, because personality has a lot to do with it. My job is to protect my show as much as possible, and not to just protect the franchise, but to protect the crew and the actors. And if I get some director who comes in who doesn't respect people, or who's a yeller, a shouter, or who works them to death, or doesn't come planned and makes everyone work harder, that's not protecting my show or the cast and crew. So there's a lot of things I look into. I also look into the terms of the year. If I have, and how many episodes I have. I want strong directors, and then I'll sandwich some strong directors with directors who are new to the show. So some strong directors who've done the show, strong directors who are new to the show, then people who are just new to television, and those people are going to need more attention. And so you kind of make sort of a plan whereby you mitigate risk by putting less experienced people before or after a very experienced person, and try. Sometimes, if we can, we fit scripts to certain directors based on what they're good at. So I know certain directors that are really good at moving the camera, at action, at a visceral sort of approach that are not as good with some performance nuances. And so if we have a big bank robbery episode or something, or hostage thing, well, I'll think about that person. But if we have a very intimate, emotionally challenging domestic drama, I'll look at another director who maybe has more experience with actor rapport and bringing out performances. So there's a lot going to these decisions.
Well, I think this has been a really great interview, Bert. I really want to thank you for giving us your time and sitting down and giving us all these little tips into the industry. It's awesome.
My pleasure. There's some good books out there. I always believe not only in modeling, but I also try to read and watch a lot of stuff. When I was at Columbia, I remember there was a Metro movie theater on Broadway that was a revival theater. It's closed now, but they played 2 different movies a day. And I think I was in that theater 4 or 5 times a week. And just to experience film and storytelling from different folks. I also, in terms of agents, there's a book called How to Agent Your Agent, which I think is kind of funny. And you get an idea about what that whole thing. And there's some good books about the journey of filmmakers, that you can look at how they made it,
Yeah. I mean, like if you could recommend, like, this is just me asking now. If you could recommend a couple books just during the quarantine, like I would love like just some books and like some weird ass, like some like obscure movies that maybe no one really knows of, that I could watch as well, or anyone who's watching this could watch.
Oh yeah, I mean, the thing is, it depends. Also, I always look at eras of film because I also believe that film is a commentary of that particular time, and so during social upheavals and or regime change in countries, you'll see filmmaking change. Like, for example, Italian neorealism came after World War II. And those guys, before that, it used to be the Italian films where they called them the white telephone films because everything was pristine, everyone was rich, it was beautiful, but it wasn't real. And then the neorealists went out to the street and shot the reality of it. And that really was after the upheaval of World War II, and how Italy changed. The same happened in Mexico. Mexico had a one-party rule for 72 years. And in 2000, the other party won for the first time, Vicente Fox. And it was then that you saw these filmmakers take it to what I call the new Mexican golden age of cinema. And you had these guys created neorealistic Mexican cinema, and they went out to the streets. Amores Perros, and is a great example of that. And I think, when you have these guys like Cuarón and Iñárritu, and even Del Toro, but in the different genre, but he's also making social statements and reflecting that period. I mean, if you look at Pan's Labyrinth, even though that took place in the Spanish Civil War, it really reflects what was going on, I think, in Mexico. And so that's something to take into account. But I'm a fan of 1970s American cinema. I think that was our best. That's the closest I think we've been to independent filmmaking in the studio system. That's where you have The Conversation, The Godfathers, Exorcist, 3 Days of the Condor, and then even cool movies like The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, even Warriors. These things were fun, but they were so beautiful to watch, but I could make a list of some films that you can see. Like, I don't know, have you ever seen The Fourth Man, the Dutch film?
Oh no, I've seen The Third Man, not The Fourth Man.
The Third Man is Orson Welles, but The Fourth Man, it's it's the guy who directed, ended up going on to direct RoboCop, but this was a Dutch film he did. That's just it's just beautiful to watch. And these are these are films that actually are very inspiring. I was inspired very much by Alan Parker. And so Alan Parker directed Midnight Express, he directed Fame, he directed Pink Floyd The Wall, and his films, there's a humanism about them that I'm very attracted to, and there's a simplicity of the storytelling. He really knows the film language. You guys are into horror. Hey, have you seen Don't Look Now? You should see Don't Look Now, and that's
we gotta watch Don't Look Now.
Yeah, that's with Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie, and really scary movie. So, and then I don't know if you saw Guillermo del Toro's first film, Cronus.
No, I've never seen it, but it's literally the only movie of his that I haven't seen.
Oh,
and
really?
like everyone is telling me to watch it. I have to watch it. That's one of the movies I literally have to see.
Yeah, I think those are great. It's such a wealth of cinema to watch, and to learn from. And in terms of books, I like books that talk about film as language. The film has its own sort of grammatic rules. And one of the books it's a hard book to find, and it's very dry, but it's called The Elements of Cinema Toward a Synesthetic Approach to Films. And
wait, sorry, what is that? The Elegance?
Oh, The Elements.
The Elements of Cinema?
Yeah. Oh, The Elements of, and
we'll put it up on the screen. We'll all text it to you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a guy named Stefan Schaff, who actually was one of my professors at Columbia. He was an apprentice to Eisenstein when.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And this guy wrote, and the book is separated into chapters of what he thinks film language is, and it's interesting. If you get past the beginning, I think good. And there's other things. Eddie Dmytryk wrote a series of books, and one of them is on screen directing, which I like very much. And it talks about different things, different approaches. And David Mamet wrote a really good book on directing. So did Sidney Lumet, I think.
Yeah, he has one on just called Making Movies.
Yeah, Making Movies. There's some good stuff there.
So much to read.
I'll send Sebastian a list of stuff that.
Yeah, we'll put it on the screen once we actually release this, and then we'll have it scrolling right now. as we talk, we'll just have the massive list.
All right, well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Honestly, it's very informative always to talk to you.
It's a great
always feel like I learn a lot.
So much.
Speaking to you. It's like a knowledge, just infinite knowledge.
Yeah. No, it's just, you're in the business long enough, you kind of get things, and then you see what works and what doesn't, and you try to get better.
For sure.
All right, thanks.
Thanks so much,
thank
bro.
you.
Thanks you too, Seb.
Thank you.